3. R squared. Rho cubed. No, not rho cubed. Are we on? Hey. Huh? Yeah, R squared. Ribeye Rob.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about R03. I was like, that's cute, bro.
No, R2, R to the R. If you guys are just now joining us, we're trying to figure out a name for our parody rapper here in the congregation. We had suggested Ribeye Rob, but
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live.
Spoiling it, man.
Ain't nobody. They don't even know yet. We don't even know.
Wednesday, we need to have the timer going off with the music.
Well, that means you got to lay down some beats, lay down some track. So, James chapter 4, evening, says in here. So, picking up kind of in the middle of the chapter, starting at verse 5, but we need to know what he is talking about. So, backing up to the beginning of the chapter, it says, "What is the source of wars and fights among you? Don't they come from cravings that are at war within you? You desire and do not have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. You fight and war. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and don't receive because you ask with wrong motives, so that you may spend it on your evil desires." And what he's getting ready to lead up to is how we should actually, that last part really framed it well, is how we should go to God when we're asking for things, when we're requesting blessings, maybe, or wisdom, when we're trying to figure out things. Now, skipping to verse 6, he says, "But he gives greater grace. Therefore, he says, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore, submit to God, but resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, sinners, and purify your hearts, double-minded people. Be miserable and mourn and weep. Your laughter must change to mourning and your joy to sorrow. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you." And he goes on, some more reinforcement of what we've been talking about already. He says, "Don't criticize one another, brothers. He who criticizes a brother or judges his brother criticizes the law and judges the law." What I had shared with you guys, a little bit of testimony, was it last week? I got to serve on a jury, and they tell you not to research the case and all that. They give you all these. There was how many instructions? I think there was 19 instructions, and they weren't just little one-liners. They were like paragraphs long. You got to take them with you in the jury room. But one of the instructions was, don't research the case. So when we got dismissed for the first day, we had to come back. But you're not supposed to look at the case and all that type of stuff. I didn't, but the curiosity got the better of me later on after we rendered the verdict, because I was curious about the case. And I shared with you guys, I looked at it, and the plaintiff was already offered a compromise. The defendant offered a judgment. What do they call it? Basically, it's like a plea bargain in a criminal case. If you agree to these terms, you're going to be, you're going to be given this money. That's what they were suing for, was money. So the defendant, what is it called? Ordered to confess. That's what it was, a judgment order to confess. And part of that was they were going to give him $50,000. They wanted $1 million. They would have gotten $50,000. They ended up with nothing. So what I was curious about was, I wonder if there's, what was the history of this case in court? Like, we heard all the testimony and everything, but what was the history in case in court? And so what the jury did, they cost them $50,000 because, they cost them more than, because when they go and do that, from that point on, if they don't accept, they have to cover all the attorney costs for the defendant. So not only did they lose the 50,000 and they didn't end up with a judgment in their favor, now they have to cover all the attorney costs since that, and that was 2 years ago. Yeah. So think amount of the time that typical defense lawyers for a lawsuit like this cost anywhere from 175 to 350. That's average dollars an hour. For 2 years, if they spent 40 hours, 50 hours, or something like that, yeah. So what the curiosity again was how much money was really on the line? Was we really weighing? Because if we'd have found in the plaintiff's deal, it was $1 million they were wanting. Like we had to set the amount afterwards, but if we favored in theirs, But that's what James is writing about here. He says, don't criticize one another, brother, because those who criticize are actually judging the law. Is it right that the jury, in that case right there, that's a big swing in money. Yeah. Is that right? Is that something? And that's what he's talking about when he's criticizing, 12 people who have that is supposed to work like that, right? You present all the evidence and everything, but is that right? I mean, they didn't get anything. I don't know. Honestly, I thought I would be more curious. I thought I would actually care a little bit more, but I was ready to get out of there. I really looked up the one thing, and yeah, it was a T intersection. It was all kinds of stuff, and it was just, I did my service, and I didn't have to go back for the murder trial, so I was done. There's a murder trial going on right now at the Pawnee County Courthouse. It says, therefore submit to God, but resist the devil, and he will flee from you. When we're talking about trying to humble ourselves, trying to talk about humility, when it says resist the devil, what are we really trying to encourage here? Now, if we go back, it says God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. That gives a little bit of inkling, I guess you could call it. Does anybody want to answer? What does it really mean to resist the devil? Anybody have an example? We have a good illustration when Jesus was tempted by the devil 3 times, right? He set him up top of the world and said, I will give you all this, and it's not even yours to give. Then he said something about food. He's like, turn something into food. And it's like, well, no. Huh? Yeah, turn it into bread. Yeah. And he said, that's not even what you're supposed to be doing. You're tempting me because I'm trying to fast. So those 2 illustrations right there. There's a third one. Anybody remember? Kind of teaches us about resisting the devil. Yeah. Yep. He tries to flip the scripture on him. Flip the script. Yep. And he says,
that's what I would say goes with resisting, is not just saying no, but how are you countering it? Like, to resist means you're going elsewhere. If you just say no, you're not really resisting, you're just saying no. To resist is you say, like in the next verse says, draw near to God, and that's how you resist, is because you're going somewhere else with it.
It would be not allowing him. There was a scripture that we read, is not even allowing him to have a foothold. When D-Day was developed in the minds of the big military strategy guys, when they were developing that plan, all they had to do, and this was in their mind, all they had to do was establish a foothold in Normandy, or on the beachheads, right? Yeah, they had to figure out where to fly the planes and where to drop the people and all that type of stuff. But their primary goal, and this is why we lost so many lives trying to do this, was because all they were worried about is establishing a presence on the beach. Because from then they could unfold the rest of their operation, so they could move from there. They had to defeat the defenses right there. if we allow the devil or anyone who represents the devil, right? This could be friends, this could be family, this could be enemies. If we allow him a foothold, then he can operate from that point on. And if we allow that to happen, then we're not resisting him. We're not actively defending against that. What Brother Rob was saying, right? We're not doing something to counter that. When it says about the armor of God, he didn't give us one piece to be able to only hide behind that thing. There's a suit of armor, and then there is a sword, the sword of truth, to be able to actively defend ourselves against those attempts. It says, draw near to God, what Brother Rob was saying, and he will draw near to you. If we call on him, if we ask for that wisdom to be able to think of some other way out of there, remember, he always gives an exit. He might be testing us himself, but he always allows for an exit to get out of that situation. We might say that about the tornadoes, right? There's a storm system going on over here east of us in Arkansas, which is actually pretty bad right now. When the storm system was here, it's not that we didn't know about it. In fact, the meteorologists were planning for like 3 or 4 days and telling everybody about it, trying to get the word out on the news stations. I actually seen a lot of people on social media talking about it. And so it worked because the message went out to be weather aware, right? But if we didn't heed those warnings, if we didn't take care of ourselves, we aren't resisting that attack, right? There was a lot of people that were concerned about where to go in those situations for Pawnee. We have a lot of storm shelters in Pawnee. I don't know that they've actually needed to be used except for a very few times. And the one time that it probably did need to be used, we didn't even know a tornado had happened. It was a tornado had come through on the top of Pawnee and actually ripped the auditorium's roof off and threw it on the rest of the school. And we didn't have no tornado warning then. We didn't. It was crazy. My dad was working at the school at the time, and they got a call in the middle of the night saying, we don't have any school for tomorrow. And then I guess they determined that next day there wasn't going to be a school for the next day for a couple days or whatever. I was like, why? What happened? We had gotten some debris out at the house. We lived out north of town, and there was a chicken coop that got blown apart by the strong winds. And so there was metal stuff like all along our yard. But we didn't even know. There was no tornado warning, no nothing or anything like that. It was just a storm that blew up real quick. But all these other storms, we haven't needed to take cover. That doesn't mean that we need to ignore those warnings, because that's the same way that the world is going to come at us. The time that it actually matters, we need to be prepared and be able to have those defenses up already, because we need to already have that action plan. We had a really good training at the tribe talking about active shooters, and these guys, they plan, they work on this stuff full time. So they have this sheet, and the sheet, I didn't even give any attention to it at first, but I looked at the questions, and the questions was, it actually made you think, because it said, everybody was talking about how they had a plan and they disseminate it and all that type of stuff. The very first question on there was about alerting people. How do you let somebody know that there is an active incident or a situation right then and there? How do you do that? And, Christina and some of these folks work at child care centers or a casino. They said that they have walkie-talkies and they have constant communication. But even then, and they have plans. I've seen them work on their plans, and being part of the casino for so long, they have a plan. It's a document. It's probably about half this size. It has all kinds of scenarios in there: tornadoes, bad weather, somebody drives off from the pumps. How are you supposed to handle these things? But that question, how do you alert? The learning center couldn't answer that. The casino definitely could not answer that, because they gave a scenario. It's like, well, we've heard in the past from other casinos, these people are addicted, and you go and try to tell them something, they won't even come off that machine. And there was an incident out there, Stone Wolf, one time. It's true. There was a car that rammed into the side of the building. It knocked over machines, and there was a person sitting there right there. And there's surveillance video today that has this. There's a person sitting right there. Seen those machines fall over, just kept on playing. The security guard goes and tells them, hey, you guys need to move. We just had some kind of crazy stuff go on. There's like, well, can I finish playing my 20? Bad deal. They weren't recognizing the attack or the incident that was going on. And that's what it says. Draw near to him, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, sinners, and purify your hearts. Right? That means we need to take action beforehand before we get out in those situations. Be miserable and mourn and weep. And why does it say be miserable? Be miserable and mourn and weep. So it reinforces it later on. It says your laughter must change to mourning and your joy to sorrow.
That's when you honestly reach out to God the most.
When do you want to repent? When do you want to get right?
What would that be? So we're talking about the active shooter or preparing for tornado drills and all that type of stuff. What is that kind of leading to? The trainers with the active shooter stuff, they really made it. I really like that training, but they use the word. I don't know if you guys know the word. It starts with a P, ends with an M, has a ARADIG in it. Paradigm. You know what? You guys know what paradigm is? So if Ken was to take off his glasses right there and set them off to the side, any of you guys with glasses, set them off to the side, it's the way you see, right? And you put them back on, it changes the way you see, right? It's a paradigm. That's what a paradigm is the way you see the world. What he's talking about, be miserable and mourn and weep. When we're out there sinning, when we're out there playing on that machine with the things crashing around us, are we in tune with God? When we're out there drinking and having fun and all those types of things that we probably used to do, were we in tune with the Lord? So what he's talking about is a state of mind. He's saying change the way you think about things. Be miserable and mourn. He don't necessarily be miserable, but be aware of what people are doing, right? Beware of what people are going through. I wouldn't say be miserable alongside them, but have a heart for them. Have a heart for the people. I always like it when our native people talk about the Trail of Tears and when we were all moved and everything like that. We don't have to get all sad about those things and everything, but think about what our people have gone through for us to be able to be here today. That's a state of mind. That's a paradigm that we have to see, right? And even more so, what Jesus had to go through to conquer death, to go through that cross, to go into that tomb, to be buried, and to rise again. What he went through, that's what he's talking about. So your laughter must change to mourning and your joy to sorrow. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. And then he goes on and talks about criticizing and all that. It says, there is one, verse 12, there is one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and to destroy. Man. It says, but who are you to judge your brother? When he's talking about that, right? We should be serving. We shouldn't be criticizing. We shouldn't be laying judgment on people. We should be serving. And in fact, just serving God means serving others. And that's the paradigm that we have to see. We shouldn't be proud. It says right there. That's what. That's actually taken from Proverbs. It looks like chapter 3. It says God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. He's able to use the ones who humble themselves, who observe a little bit of humility and actually serve not only him but his people. But he resists those that are proud, about the way they do things, proud about who they are and what they've accomplished and all these types of stuff. But it's not about what they're doing isn't about what God is doing, right? And then on the flip side, those who serve, it's only because of God. And they recognize that. We might get tired of hearing about it. Oh, it's only because of God. It's only because, he's able to do some of these things. But it's true. At least they're speaking truth instead of saying, oh, I was able to do all this stuff by myself. I was able to accomplish all these great things. No, God had a hand in it. He put the people around you. You might have chose them, but he set them. He put their resume in front of you. He made it possible for them to be able to be in your life and all that. God's responsible for everything. Have a little bit of humility. And that's what when it talks about the source of all this conflict, back up to the beginning, it says, what is the source of wars and fights among you? Well, people get too proud. People get too ambitious about what they want to do and what they want to accomplish for themselves. The old kingdoms were all about spoils and war, or spoils and treasures and all these things. That's why they would fight. They wanted to have all the land. They wanted to have all the resources. They want to have all the, our native people actually probably took a little bit of wisdom from that and said, yeah, we don't need a whole lot. We just need to be able to sustain ourselves. We just need a few sheep. Just a few sheep and a few sheep herders. Just a couple Hogans. We're all right. Them Comanches, though, they was like, we want all the horses. We want every one of them. So I always thought that was a really good study. Any questions about this? It says you desire and do not have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. See, these guys would go out and set out to do these things and kill all these innocent people, or capture a bunch of people and try to make something good of it. But in turn, it actually hurt them a lot. And goes on describing. But that's the source, is our pride. Sometimes, most of the time. Pride and thinking that we can do it all. So, any questions? Comments? All right. For those of you online, we're going to be back Saturday. We won't be back here. You can catch us online, KUSH 1600 AM on the TuneIn app. There's an FM station. I keep on forgetting to look it up here around Cushing. Then we'll be back here in church Sunday morning. Sunday school starts at 10, and our main worship service will start at 11. And so we're going to go into our time of prayer right here. If you want to join us, we eat really, really good every Wednesday evening, so come and join us. But until we see you again on Sunday, see you later.